meditations of my heart be pleasing to you, O Lord. Please be seated. The punchline of "don't just do something, stand there" is rather well known, and it fits a variety of situations from comic to sarcastic. It has indeed the opposite response to the obvious help situations where, for a variety of reasons, people choose not to or they just can't get involved. The lessons we have appointed for today get to the core of what being in covenant with God means. The lessons show the ideal of what this covenant entails and hints to the fact that without a relationship to both God and neighbor, it is not possible to keep that covenant. We are required by God to not just stand there. We're required to do something. Now, ancient as well as contemporary societies are stratified and are dependent on man-made boundaries and rules. And oftentimes the boundaries and the rules we come up tend to conflict with God's kingdom. People, like the lawyer in today's lesson of the Good Samaritan, are often looking for an advantage or to rationalize behavior to best fit a personal need or a societal need. It is a lawyer's job to limit liability. That's what they get paid for, looking for a condition. There's no different in Jesus' time, and he chose the parable of the Good Samaritan, shows what the core of covenant living means. Now, the parable of the Good Samaritan is so well known that most of us even understand its essence. And even so, most of us routinely reject its message, or we at least qualify it in our lives. It becomes a fad at times, such as the recent popularity of paying it forward, to where people are encouraged to be proactive in giving. But, usually that's a win-win situation. You might get something out of being nice to someone else. It's more something out of maybe compulsion than it is compassion. Now, some boundaries and rules make perfect sense for people today, just as they did in ancient history. We just set them up. We don't know many of our neighbors. Even if we live or work just a short distance from them, our neighbors may be different. They may be different in color, or faith, or culturally. Truthfully, most neighbors today are really strangers to us. And from early childhood on, we're taught stranger danger. Stay away from that person. We don't stop for people with car trouble anymore because we assume they have a cell phone. And we couldn't practically offer any other help for them. Who can work on cars nowadays? What could you do? We also rationalize not stopping along the road when we see someone walking and possibly in need of a ride. They'll be fine. They're choosing to walk. They've got a phone, I'm sure. Plus, deep down, who wants to take a chance of being robbed, or even worse, by a person that's a stranger? And how could we possibly meet the needs of the multitudes who are victims of mental illness, job loss, homelessness, drug addiction, or the countless maladies that plague human existence? I did say victims because many of them are on the road to Jericho, and they have fallen because of some attack. And we too are on that road daily. And oftentimes we choose to act more like the priest or the temple assistant, in that we've got places to go. We don't have time to stop right now. Someone else will help them. We can't get sullied up. We can't get messed up today. We've got to be the way we are. And we may even have the resources. The resources that we'll see today with the oil, bread, and wine, like the Good Samaritan uses freely. But we say we better save our resources for when we really need them, when we deem best. So there are a variety of reasons why don't we respond to help a victim. There's a high price. There could be a high price for taking action. It may be too steep. The Good Samaritan, he ignored the high price in a literal way. He ponied up that cash. He did planned travel. He took time out. He took time out to be an agent of divine compassion. The price for helping someone else might be, for your reputation. Who are you hanging around? Who are you trying to help out there? And they're a child of God. There are times when we are the only one available to be the right person at the right time. As the Reverend Hugh Magers says, doing whatever it takes requires acknowledging that the best interest of someone else goes ahead of our own perceived self-interest. The faith required to not just stand there, but do something is of such magnitude that it really becomes a lifelong journey. Without the companionship and empathy of Jesus, we could never sustain it. Living a merciful life is not defined as helping someone once or just whenever it's convenient for us. Instead, living a merciful life is one in which a person's character is formed by the basic premise that they love God, they love their neighbor, and they love themselves. It's a progression of self that can be summed up pretty good by Mahatma Gandhi. He said, your beliefs become your thoughts become your words become your actions become your habits become your values, and your values become your destiny. Earlier this summer, there was a fire at the Cornerstone Apartments in Adrian, which is where the original YMCA was located. The building's over 100 years old. It's all cobbled up into a variety of units that serve as low-cost housing. Many of the tenants are the marginalized of the area. Anyway, I spent the first day of my summer vacation, which was really the first day of my retirement, deciding that I would help the residents that had to move the things out of there so repairs could be made. They were all scurrying around looking for places to stay, and they had to have the stuff out. It was a humbling experience in a number of ways. The closeness of the victims and their concern for their community was obvious as they milled together and made sure people were getting their stuff around. And there was this lack of anger at the tenant who had caused the fire by using the stove late at night while drinking and then falling asleep. So they showed pretty good love for their neighbor, even though they were all put out. Now, we moved several people out. It wasn't too bad. No one had too much so far. But the last move of the day was for this hoarder. Been a good TV show, I suppose. He lived on the upper floor, of course, right below where the fire was. And he insisted that everything out of his unit had to be carried down 2 levels into the truck, the Salvation Army truck. And if it didn't make any difference, there was a dumpster could take care of some of the stuff. Everything had to go. Stuff just falling apart, bottles and bags, just everything. And I say that because as we're carrying this questionable cargo down, and it's getting hotter and more humid. but as the days going on, we would occasionally carp about the task. But then quickly, the other two people who worked for the Salvation Army, I was just like a helper that day, we realized, and we would say individually that, well, these belongings belong to people that's all they have. They're our neighbor. There's no fault that they're being moved out here. Something came along and now they have an uncertain future. The Reverend Charles Hoffacker wrote some good advice in a sermon a number of years ago regarding situations when you have to take that Good Samaritan behavior and act out. He states the actions of the Good Samaritan. What did he do? First, he saw the wounded traveler. He did not turn his eyes away. He didn't just glance at the victim, as we're wont to do. And he didn't just look somewhere. He didn't just see the wounded person and dismiss him by saying, man, that man's Jewish. We Samaritans and our enemies of the Jews, why should I help him? He doesn't say, that man was mugged because he dared travel this dangerous road. Serves him right. He didn't do that. He saw him. Instead, the Samaritan recognized the wounded traveler as a fellow human being, someone like himself, someone like us, a child of God. And as a result, the Samaritan is moved to pity. And then the pity gives way to action. He does what he can do to help. I hope that I was able to share such compassion with the hoarder and all the other victims that day. And I hope that I can take to heart the message of Gandhi and take it along as this is an ongoing process. And the reason is because we're all required. We're required by our faith to act in such a way as the Samaritan. The reading from Deuteronomy says we must turn to God with all our heart and soul and act in his manner. And since it is God, through the person of Jesus, who instructs the action of the good neighbor, we are bound to do so too. The reading from Colossians shows that such actions are bearing the fruit of the kingdom. This is what we're expected to do. So that you may lead lives worthy of the Lord, fully pleasing to him, as you bear fruit in every good work, and as you grow in the knowledge of God. Our baptismal covenant asks, will you seek and serve Christ in all persons, loving your neighbors as yourselves? And the response is, I will, with God's help. Loving your neighbor is central to the Christian faith. And in telling this parable, Jesus shows demonstratively and discreetly some ways to do that. Some of the more discreet instruction of Jesus includes that we are expected to be paying attention to our neighbor's needs at all times. Like when you're driving down the road and driver's training, they tell you, stay on the road, look around all the time, be aware, know where you are. Nowadays, my new car's got the beeper in the back, so when I back up, it warns me of somebody. Well, maybe I should be paying a little more attention than care about the sign behind me in the first place. It's like it. You need to be paying attention and don't dismiss people as someone that's not worthy or someone that's not really needs to share. You need to share your concern with them. You need to be that right person at the right time. God really gave us what you might call Samaritan mercy through Jesus. This is the God the prophets spoke of when they said that the sorrow felt by the people is also felt by God. God took time off of being an exclusive God, and he became human form in Jesus. And this is how he wants us to be. He demonstrated the compassion he had for us. Any of us. It has been said that God has no taste in people. Just unconditional love and compassion. This parable is the message of the cross. All you need to know. And as Jesus instructed the lawyer,